Hello, it's your boy Amanda. It's been a hot minute, but today I'm here to talk about something I'm very passionate about, and I really don't look the part right now. Give me a minute. Oh. There you go. Now I look edgy. Now I feel qualified. So, if you haven't caught on from the title and from my beautiful brooch. Brooch? Who says brooch? Well, if you haven't caught on by now, I'm going to be talking about Fate, the Winx Club Saga. So, for anyone who didn't know, which you probably don't know because I really haven't posted much on here, is I'm a huge fan of the Winx Club. So Winx Club is something that's always been near and dear to my heart, and I grew up with it. I watched it on 4Kids when I was really little, and when it rebooted on Nickelodeon when I was about 10, 11, I watched it religiously. Like after school, that was my highlight. It meant so much to me. And finding out that there was a live action version coming out, I was very excited. I thought it would be really cool to get to see it now that I'm older. And when the trailers started dropping and things started coming out, I started to learn that it wasn't gonna be what I was expecting it to be. And that they were really changing so much to the point where it didn't even feel like Winx. So I decided to watch it. I watched it in an entire day. And I also rewatched the first 2 seasons of the rainbow version of Winx Club. I'll go through the versions of Winx Club in just a moment to help prep. So I'm going to talk about Winx Club, the original, real quick, just to give you guys an overview before I start destroying Fate and saying what I think about it. Winx Club is a story about a girl named Bloom who finds out she's a fairy and ends up going to the magical dimension and studying at the school Alfea, which is a college for fairies. At that college for fairies, she learns to hone her magic and meets some new friends, all with different fairy powers. Meanwhile, they need to take down the evil forces brought by the Tricks, and they constantly are throwing curveballs at them, and that's kind of the premise of the show. They're just fairies fighting witches, and it's fun. And it's a really simple, straightforward story with magic, friendship, and pretty outfits. It's very pretty because the transformation sequences love them. They're beautiful, and that's why I love it. So it's a staple of girly television, for sure. Thought I'd meet one of us out here. So now that we got the basic overview of what the cartoon's all about, let's talk about the gritty live action one. So the first thing I want to talk about is the world. The world that they created. Because the world in the original is pretty straightforward and pretty simple. There's a human world, there's the magic dimension. And they always refer to the human world as Earth in the original cartoon. And the magical world is Magix. And they have 3 colleges. They have Alfea, Alfea, which is the college for fairies, Cloud Tower, which is the school for witches, and Red Fountain, which is the school for, they say wizards in the cartoon at some point, but they don't really have magic. They're the specialists is what they call them. They're pretty much just Jedis without the Force. Pretty much. In the Fate, they have just 1 school, and they have a specialist wing, and that's it. There is no witches. So, okay. So first they just cut out the witches. So their Tricks character is just a fairy, I guess. One of my main issues with their world, though, is the schools, yeah, sure, do that. But the main issue I have is the modern lingo and modern technology. One of the main things in this live action series is the texting. Throughout the entire show, they'll text each other and the text will pop up on screen. And this is a huge thing for the show. Like, they use it all the time. The texting just becomes a huge part of the show, and it just kind of feels weird. It's like you could convey that better, I guess. And it's weird that they're in a magical world, yet the amount of stuff they use is just Earth human technology. There really isn't much things that are magic. In the original series, it felt like a different world. It felt like a magical world. In this, it feels like they're just in a castle. And then they can occasionally move things with their minds or can occasionally control stuff like elements. Next, let's talk about the elements. So they simplified all their powers to just being the elements, right? So they changed Stella's power from the sun and the moon to just light. They changed Aisha's powers from being able to morph liquid, kind of like a liquid Green Lantern kind of thing. And they just changed it to just water. Bloom, the Dragon Flame, just made it fire. Musa, they did mind instead of music. Flora, they just did earth, like plants, even though it's pretty close to the original, like exact. Musa's really the one they changed the most. And then they just straight up got rid of Tekna. But we're going to get into the characters later. It didn't feel like a fantasy world. There wasn't much magic being used. It didn't feel like Winx. Because Winx always felt like an adventure kind of series, you know? They never focused on the petty high school drama. Obviously, they had it in there. But the main drama was always the threats to the universe, saving the world. That was always their main motivations, was stopping evil. But that's my first gripe with the show, is the universe just felt ugh. Next, let's talk about the burned ones. So the burned ones are their villains. Winx has always had generic monster villains, like the Creatures of the Dark, Darkar's monsters. Like, they've always had generic, creepy-looking monsters, so I really didn't have an issue with the burned ones being a thing. And they never really had a name in the original show. So, I mean, I didn't mind them. I thought that was fine, I guess. They were a big part of the show, though. My main issue with the burned ones, though, is they had this big thing where if they scratch you, you become one of them. And, like, all our major characters who got scratched by it never became one of them. They just, like, cried and were like, I'm going to become one. Kill me. And then they just never did. Because they killed the one. It was just a really stupid thing to include in the plot. The story overall, I feel like there's one of the best things about the original cartoon. It is gimmicky. It is silly. But the storylines and just the framework of them is actually really good. And they could have taken any of them. They didn't have to do the season 1 storyline with Bloom's origins and the tricks. They could have done Darkara. They could have done Voltor. They could have been... You realize if you are basing something off of something, you can steal from it. Because you're making a reboot of it. You don't have to have all original ideas. You can steal them from the original because you already have gotten the rights and the credits to it. So why are you bothering making up stupid stuff when you can use what you have access to? I'm getting really heated. So I just felt like with the storyline, they just chose not to use the original. Because, spoilers, Beatrix reveals that she's working for someone, right? And she says he. So you instantly think, oh, maybe it's Voltor or Darkar. That could be a really cool reveal to the ones in the original fan. No, it's Sky's dad. What? The King of Heraklion. Or they didn't even establish if Sky was the King of Heraklion or not. They mentioned Heraklion a few times. But they were so bad at establishing things. I went on a bit of a tangent. We'll get into this when we get to Sky. But yeah, the storyline, I'll get into it deeper and later into this video. But for now, let's move on to the characters. Fire burning deep inside. Oh, well, she has like messy hair. My hair is like straight as all can be. Ugh. Can't do it. Well, at least they tried to make her hair messy in the show, which I appreciated. So Bloom is our main character. They treated her as such in this series for sure. Abigail Cohen did a really great job. Perfect casting. If I were to cast the show, I'd probably do the same. I'd keep her. I think she did a great job. But Bloom as a character, I'm not going to go into her backstory. That'll be later in the video. But as a character, I think she was accurate personality-wise. You know, she's eager as all heck to find out about her past, you know, willing to do dangerous things to figure out her past, you know. And that's ultimately her downfall, is trying to find out her past and trusting the wrong people. And she pretty much is similar. The one thing is her backstory where she's like a loner, and how, like, even my friend who I watched it with pointed out, you know, they established that she's a loner and that she doesn't like being around people. But when she goes to the party, she's like, let's play beer pong. It's like, you just established she was this loner. I don't know. Her character was good. It was just a little inconsistent throughout it. But Abigail Cohen did a great job. Bloom's powers look really great throughout the show. I mean, they made them more realistic. Because in the show, it's just pew, 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 pew. You know, in the cartoon, it's just pew, 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 pew. In this show, it's actual fire. So you know, you can't just be pew 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 pewing like in the cartoon. So they did make it more realistic. I think they made her work. I don't think she was a bad character. We'll get into more of the relationships and her backstory later in the video. Stella, the casting, again, I thought it was good. But Stella was definitely, you know, in the cartoon, she is a bit obnoxious. She is a bit stuck up, you know. She is the fashion, she's stuck up. And they turned that up to 11. Stella, for the first half of this show, or even more than the first half, she was how she was in that one episode of the original, where she was just being mean to be mean. Like, she was just saying the meanest stuff to her friends. And, I mean, it was consistent with the cartoon, surprisingly, but she never was that bad. You know, like, she felt, like, really mean. Obviously, later in the season, they revealed why she's like that. It's because of how much pressure her mother puts on her, which I think that was a good way to tie it up in the end, and she came around in the end, which was nice. You know, because Stella's obviously not the villain, and I think they did all right with Stella. I mean, she had her moments where I was like, really? Really? And I did not like her pink outfits. Her outfits in the show are like a million times better. Sorry. The magic's in you and the magic's in me. I'm very happy with how they did Aisha. So Aisha in the original, she always was very strong-willed, athletic, always more active than everybody else. And they made her just a full-on athlete in this one. You know, they had her swim every day, wake up early. You know, she's like the perfect student. Like, she's got everything. The only issue was they made her like a teacher's pet, and I really hated how she betrayed them in the end by telling the teachers about what they were doing. I get it, yeah, she's kind of the only one with like a conscience on her brain, but she's always been like, go for it kind of person, you know? Like, even her introduction in the cartoon, like, she was going to save the Pixies on her own, even though she knew it was a stupid idea that she probably wouldn't be able to do it, you know? And I think they did her good, but making her Bloom's roommate, though, instead of making Flora her roommate, like in the original, I think that was good. It gave Bloom a really good guide, you know, because all the other characters have a bit more extreme personalities. And using Aisha, who's a little bit more strong-willed, straightforward, you know, having her be Bloom's guide was a little bit more helpful, and I liked that aspect of it. So that was a good change that I liked. So Musa definitely had the biggest change to her powers specifically, because she was always the music fairy, very sound. They could have done sound. Why didn't they just do sound? Why'd they do mind? Because this makes Musa end up being the emotional support of the group, which she isn't. Musa never was the emotional support of the group. Never. They always said she was the tomboy of the group, but she's more like the cool one, you know? She's the cool one. And the only thing they really did to nod to her music abilities was the headphone thing, where she used it to tune out everyone's emotions, which I liked that aspect of it. You know, it was a cool thing. I get it, yeah. But just having her be the mind fairy, I hated it. I thought they should have just done music or sound. I didn't like the mind fairy, because now, if they were doing actual combat in the show, she's useless. Oh, Tara. Why didn't you just do Flora? Just name her Flora. Get rid of the family shit. Oh, they say shit in the show, so can I say shit now? Get rid of the family stuff. Like, having her dad work in the greenhouse, be a professor, have her brother be there too. It's like, I don't care. I did like the plants all over the room. I did like how, like, she was very talkative, very chatty, very fun. And I know I'm going to talk about the elephant in the room. So they did cast a plus-size actress to play Tara. Maybe that's why they didn't make her Flora, because they thought people would get mad if they made Flora plus-size. People are more mad that you made her white instead of making her plus-size. Like, I don't care that she's plus-size. Like, that's fine. You can do that. But they didn't make too much of a big deal about it. They did have, like, a few jokes here and there. They should have just done Flora. Just use the same actress. Just name her Flora. And then make her a little less crazy. Because Flora was always, like, the sweet one of the group. Like, the one you would go to if you need help, you know. She was always the one that you could go to. The caring one, you know. And this one, she's just really loud and wild. So, yeah. Techno was snubbed. Poor thing. Oh, Beatrix. So for some reason, they couldn't just do all 3 tricks or just pick one. You could have just picked one. So she clearly has Stormy's powers. So you could have, Stormy's a stupid, just do Darcy. It's the most normal name. You could have did just name her Darcy, give her Stormy's powers, or Darcy's powers. They're way cooler illusions, like that's so cool. And Darcy's the one that dates Riven, because she's with Riven. You could have just did Darcy. But other than that, that upsets me greatly. It's hard to tell if she's a villain or not. And also, is she a witch or a fairy? I don't mind her. I think the actress does a really good job. But there just wasn't any clarity with her. Like, I don't know. She just felt like a really weird character. And the fact that she befriended Bloom, like, it was weird. I don't know how I felt about her. But I would have preferred if they just did Darcy or, like, just simplified her a little bit. Like, I don't know. She just felt was confusing. She really wasn't the most interesting character. And if I were to do the Tricks live action, I probably wouldn't have done it that way. Sky had a lot to do. They gave Sky a lot to do in this one. Again, I'll get into the relationships in just a moment. That's going to be the next section after I do one more character. But I feel like he was adapted really well. You know, made him very noble, made him like, you know, the strongest student, which he's always been. I think they did a good job with Sky. You know, they made him this very friendly guy. They made him the best student, best fighter. Especially his uniforms actually looked really good. I like that. But it never really were clear if he was the prince or not. You know, and his obsession with Bloom, you know, obviously from watching the cartoon, like, you like Sky and Bloom together. But from the perspective of, like, not knowing that, but yeah, I thought they did Sky really well. I'll get to the stuff with Stella. That's really the stuff I did not like with Sky. But he was always, you know, someone Bloom felt like she could talk to. And he still is the love interest kind of character. But he had a little bit more to it, and also making his dad a major villain for the next season, like building up his dad as like not actually being dead. That's a cool thing. And then also his connection with the specialist teacher. That was kind of cool too. I don't know, Sky was just Sky, I guess. Damn Riven. Damn Riven. So Riven's always been the bad boy of the group. And with the TVMA rating, they were able to amp Riven up to 11 with his bad boy antics. His bad boy antics. They had him drink, they had him smoke, like they had him, you know, doing bad boy things. And he was just a general, like, ass to everybody. And I kind of enjoyed it. I think they did a good job with Riven, honestly. My main complaint with Riven is, where's his paintbrush hair? I love his red spike of hair. The fact that they didn't give him hair being just a red spike. I'm upsetty spaghetti with you. Come on, you could have done it. You could have done it. Riven's one of the goofiest looking characters from the original series. They could have kept him looking goofy and I would have loved it. Please. Now let's get to the relationships. So they kept some from the original series and they added their own. Why? So let's go through some of them really quick. So Sky and Stella was awful. I hated it. There was a very toxic relationship. And the only reason they did this is because they cut Brandon out of the show. So Brandon was Stella's boyfriend in the original series. He was Sky's best friend. And so they just decided to make Stella with Sky. And I think the reason why they did that is, you know, Stella was always attracted to Brandon originally in the original series because she thought he was the Prince of Heraklion because of the whole switch thing in the original series. So it felt like she was more attracted to his title as Prince. You know, they could play it as that, but it didn't really feel like that. It didn't feel right having Sky and Stella, and knowing that Stella and Bloom are going to be friends. It's like, you know, it just feels weird to put that love triangle when you know Stella and Bloom are meant to be best friends. It just felt like an unnecessary love triangle, which then leads to Bloom and Sky, which ends up being obviously the endgame couple, because in the cartoon, and they had a cute love story going in, and it never really did feel too forced, you know, and it took time for Bloom and Sky to develop that relationship, you know, and how he was always the one he confided into her, like at the party, she'd like go and talk to him, you know. Also at the party, it was weird that she was talking to Sky and Stella didn't like interrupt her. The fact that Sky and Stella were apart that long at the party when Stella was still obsessed with Sky, it was just weird that they did that way. But Bloom and Sky, of course, it's the staple of the original series. And Riven and Beatrix, surprisingly, this is actually accurate to the series. Surprisingly, yeah. It is, because Riven dates Darcy in the original series. One of my main issues with this leads to another couple, which is Musa. So Musa was always liked Riven in the original series. She always liked Riven. And it was always one of the more interesting relationships in the show because he's just an asshole. That's Riven. He's just an asshole, you know? So the fact that Musa liked Riven was always such an interesting point of the show because he needed some work, that boy did. And when he dated Darcy, one of the tricks in the original series, you know, he was kind of just doing it to be an ass because they knew she was evil in that one. Like, they knew. And it made Musa jealous. And it was really heartbreaking when he dated Darcy, you know, because you felt Musa's pain. In this one, when he dates Beatrix, Musa doesn't even know Riven. So you didn't even feel it. Because Musa's too busy dating Sam. Sam is the most bland character they could have added. You didn't need to add him to the series. He was so boring. If you wanted more boys in the series, you could have done some from the original series. I don't get it. And why a love interest from Musa? You kept her love interest in the show. It's Riven. You could have had her growing jealous of Beatrix. I don't know, could have gave Musa more of something to do. Instead of just date Sam, the bland he walks through walls, that's it. Awful, boring character. So Musa and Sam was definitely my least favorite couple in this new series. They were so boring. And Musa interacted with Riven towards the end. I got excited, you know. Had a little bit of chemistry, a little bit of butt heads. But that's what I like about Musa and Riven, you know. They're constantly butting heads. And then eventually, you know, we get, it's really nice. It feels rewarding. And I like Musa and Riven. They're one of the more interesting couples of the original series. And for anyone who just watched the live action and did not watch the original series, yeah, Musa and Riven, that's a real thing. And it's one of the best couples in the original show. And last, we're going to talk about Dane and Tara. Dane suffers the same thing that Sam does, which is boring. Just a boring character. And Dane was just a weird character. Like, Riven and Beatrix just took him in and, like, made him a bad boy for no reason. It was stupid, all that stuff with Dane. Freaking Dane. Like, why'd you have to add that character? You could have just put Helia in the show, or you could have just not did that. I feel like Sky's the only good male, likable male character in this, you know? Like Riven, you know, they chose to do Riven and Sky. Those are the only two specials they tried to do from the original series. Sky's like the angelic good boy, and Riven's the, like, asshole bad boy. Well, there's a bunch of in-betweens, like Brandon and Timmy. And even Helia and Naboo. You know? Like, you could have done any of them, but you chose to just make new ones who suck. This is my last little bracket, which is going to be Bloom's journey throughout the whole season. So one of my main issues with it was her hearing the backstory of this village that got destroyed, right? Because in the original, it was her home planet that got destroyed, and her sister took her to Earth to save her. In this one, there's like this woman named Rosalind who saved her, who was the past headmistress of Althea. It just felt so like gobbledygook. Because they told this story like 5 times in the series, and they were all from different perspectives, and they kept adding to it. But it just was confusing. I don't know. It just felt wrong. Because the thing is again, I'm going to say this point again, is you have a template you can follow. You have storylines that are good that you can use without any repercussions. Because guess what? You own the rights to it. You're making an adaptation. And yet they chose to do something completely custom. Like, why? Like, why are they doing that? And that backstory was okay, I guess, and having Farah Dowling hide so much. Obviously, Farragonda hid a lot in the original series, but, like, a lot of it just seemed crucial, you know? And, like, Bloom was openly asking, and she just kind of ignored her. And I did like her little, like, Bloom's discovery with Beatrix was cool, you know? And how she was helping Beatrix was kind of an interesting change, which is why I in the Beatrix section, I'm still unsure about her, is how she was with Bloom. But the only thing about Bloom's journey that I really liked it was a little fan servicey, which obviously I loved it. But Bloom, during the whole time the school's getting attacked, after she frees Rosalind, and Rosalind just gets everyone wrecked. It's really stupid. Rosalind, like, lowers the wall, and the burned ones come in, and they're all after Bloom. And it just felt very anticlimactic. Like, they're getting ready, like, to start this war, you know? They're getting ready to fight. And then all of a sudden, like, finally, Bloom decides to do something. Bloom goes, and she just goes full on God mode. She transforms. So one of the things in this show was transformations, that they just cut them out. In the first episode, they said, you know, we don't do transformations anymore. Because I just thought, you know, they're not going to do it for budgetary reasons, or they didn't think it would translate well to live action. It translated very well to live action. The transformation sequence with Bloom looked gorgeous. And the fiery wings, that was so cool. I really liked that. My only gripe with it, I know I have a gripe with it, is that they didn't change her outfit. Now, they could have made a completely custom outfit, like, for the transform form. It could have been, like, some fiery thing. It could have been something really cool. It didn't need to be, you know, the classic blue, you know, the blue sparkly, you know. It didn't have to be that, and I would have been okay with that. Like, I felt like that was the only bit of fan service we really got, and it wasn't even the most accurate fan service. We could have got something so much better, but we didn't. But I did like the transformation sequence. What they did for, like, the spinning and, like, the fire, like, going around her, that looked really cool. And then she just went God mode and saved the school really quick. So, I don't know, it just felt like there was no, like, consequences there, you know? She just kind of did it, and okay, cool, I guess. I liked it, but I didn't, you know, they changed a lot. They kept a lot. That's how adaptions go, I guess. Overall, I didn't hate it as much as I thought I was going to. It is a watchable show. It kept me engaged. Like, I didn't check my phone in the middle of it. Like, I was engaged in watching it the whole time. Like, there is entertainment value there. You know, it's not just garbage. But as a Winx adaptation, it's lackluster at best. It tries its best to be an adaptation, I guess. But it's, you know, I watched it in a whole day. It's entertaining. But if you think of it as something separate from Winx, you'll enjoy it more. If you're thinking of it as a direct Winx make, which it is, but it feels like a high school drama with Winx names and characters and powers slapped in there, you know? Because it doesn't feel as magical as Winx ever did. And again, I don't see myself rewatching this anytime soon. I'll definitely watch it. There is a season 2. I do recommend it, but the new characters added were bad. And, you know, I did like seeing Sky and Bloom in live action. You know, there was some benefits to it. You know, I did like seeing this kind of stuff, you know, and hearing, you know, things that I've always said being, like, said in, like, a real, like, production, you know, like hearing the names like Bloom and Sky and, like, seeing all that was kind of cool. You know, there was things I liked, things I hated, and I feel like everyone's going to have a different opinion. I feel like I liked it more than most people did, or I don't know, I've seen pretty good reception from Winx fans. I'm a huge Jenny Nicholson fan, and she's been really critical of it on Twitter. She hasn't made a video about it yet, but she is going to make one. And I'm curious to see what she's gonna say about it. But in my opinion, it's not a bad show, but it's not a fantastic Winx adaptation, you know? If I were to make a Winx live action, I probably would have made it completely different. And if you are interested in Winx, I highly recommend you watch the 2 first seasons of the original show. If that's too long for you, then the Nick specials are really good as well. You get the story, and you can kind of see what Winx is all about if you've never watched the original series before. If you watch the Nick specials, it's only 2 hours. Actually, no, it's only 4 hours of your time, I'm sorry. But if you're interested, the full seasons, rainbow version, 4Kids versions, all the versions are available on YouTube. I don't know if they're officially uploaded or not, but they are on there for free if you're interested in watching them. I've been watching the rainbow version, which is the original, and I still get enjoyment out of it. It is very gimmicky, very goofy, you know, because it is a kid's show about magic and fairies, but not all of it has to be edgy and dark. Sorry, Fate. You can do a fun, goofy fairy show without being dark and still make it good. So that's all I have to say about Winx, and I have a few things to say about me. So since you stumbled across this channel, I'm your boy Amanda. If you're only here for the Winx, then feel free to go. But if you're interested in anything else I have going on, I'm just trying to get this channel working out. Hopefully this video does okay, so that people know I exist. I've been wanting to make some videos for a while. This one I've been really passionate about and wanting to make for a while now. So I'm trying to get it out as soon as I can to capitalize on, you know, people still talking about Fate. And here's some video topics that I've wanted to make. And if you're interested, leave a comment below and I will get working on them. These are some ideas I've had. Number one is a Demi Lovato song ranking list. I'm a huge fan of Julia Cudney, and she did a Taylor Swift ranking video. She ranked every Taylor Swift song. This would be a hefty project. I've already started making the list, but I love Demi Lovato's music. Love to make a ranking of it. Next is the WTF moments in Glee, because Glee is one of the weirdest shows. I watched it for the first time this summer. It is so weird. And I would love to talk about some of the weird things in it. And I just feel like that would just be a very fun video. And the next one is Sydney to the Max. I love Disney Channel. I love talking about Disney Channel. And Sydney to the Max is definitely one of the best modern Disney Channel shows. And I feel like it's not talked about enough. And it needs a little bit more representation. And the last one is very near and dear to my heart. I did film it once, but I never posted it because I was scared. But Winx Club, why it's so special to me. So I got caught up. I just want to summarize right at the end, pretty much. I have like my own custom story that was inspired by Winx when I was like 6 years old. And when I was 10, I got really back into Winx. And I developed my own story based off of it. And it has changed so much because I've been working up for like 15 years that it doesn't even resemble Winx anymore. And I don't like writing, so I don't really want to write it down. So I was thinking of making videos of it. It's called Fire Spark. I mentioned it in my first video, but stay tuned. And if you're interested in it, I will definitely make a video about it later on. So subscribe, like, let me know if you like this. Leave comments letting me know if you want to see anything else from me or talking about Fate, because I'd love to have a discussion about it. Thank you for watching, and it's been your boy Amanda.